Graders. So the first thing you're going to do is start creating your game pieces. Now, your game pieces should be about an inch big. If the board is about 2-inch squares, that will shrink a little when the clay dries. So you want to make sure that they fit in nicely. This clay will shrink also, but you don't want them to be too big. So between 1.5 inches and 1 inch size is good. And of course, how you make this will depend on your theme. So just the basics to start is to just take a little bit of clay. This is about the right amount of size for a game piece, about 1 inch, and you start to mold it. Obviously, everyone's molding them to be different, but you can push and pull at the clay. You can shape it with your fingers. If you have cracks, a little bit of water, a little bit of pressure can smooth that out. Okay, so you can kind of move the clay to how you want it to be. If you wanted to add clay to that, say maybe I'm making like a cake, like a layer cake. So there's the bottom layer and this is the top layer. So you can't just take clay and put it on top and push it in. The reason is smooth clay to smooth clay has no reason to join together. It's gonna just fall apart when it air dries. So you have to do something called score, slip, secure, and smooth. Scoring uses a rake tool like this, and you're going to basically create different surface texture for the clay to attach themselves to. So both parts that are gonna be attached get raked. Now we have water with a little bit of clay in it is called slip. You can use your fingers or your tool bins should have little brushes. So a little bit of water on there, a little bit of slip. So score, slip. You put the pieces together. Sometimes a little wiggle helps them attach. Now these centers are attached, but the outside along that edge is still a weak spot. That's still a vulnerability. So what you can do is take your plastic tools. Sometimes they have like textured edges. You don't want that. You want the nice smooth rounded edge. Always wet your tools before you use them. It glides on the clay better. So score, slip, now is secure. So very gently, you're just gonna push the clay together, trying to get rid of that edge. You can go up and down like that. Sometimes instead you can go just across and around. Just want to kind of get rid of that edge. So score, slip, secure. That's on there pretty well, but it got a little messed up because of the tool marks. So the last step is just to make it look pretty again. Score, slip, secure, and then smooth. You can use your finger or one of your other tools, and you just want to try to get that line away. Okay, now let's say this was a cake. I could go in, I've got, for instance, I've got needle tools, I've got different ways you can draw on the clay to make your decorations. Just make sure if you're drawing on the clay that you're constantly cleaning your tool and picking out these little doodads of clay that sometimes come when you do that. So you can draw on the clay, you can attach little things. If you're score, slipping, and securing something really small, sometimes you're not able to score if it's too small, but you still need to slip and secure. So still add the water, you still have to secure it. So score if you anything larger. If it's really too tiny to put the score marks are on there, you still have to slip and secure. So let's say if that's like some kind of decoration, and you keep going. Now, these are little cakes. They're nice in 3D. The only thing you have to be careful of, if anything is more than 1/2 inch thick. So this is right on the border, you know, over here it's only about a little bit more than 1/2 inch, but in the middle it is a little bit thicker. And what can happen is anything that's too thick and solid runs the risk in the kiln of blowing up. Because when you're done with these, they're all gonna air dry, and they air dry at a certain rate. but anything that's too thick takes a long time to air dry. So there might be some moisture in there hiding out that we don't want. So in order to make sure that your pieces dry evenly, on the bottom, if you're at all unsure, if the piece seems like it's slightly thick, you're gonna need to hollow these out. And it could be really subtle. Use these little loop tools. And so I'm just going to take it here and twirl. See, it removes a little bit of clay. So now I can take this end and sort of neaten up the inside. Now because I went that far in, so I know that it's pretty good. The top is good because it's not as wide. Now the piece is hollow, but it doesn't look that way. It still looks the same on the outside. So any piece that's a little bit thicker, you can do that with. Another technique you might want to use is using a slab. This is using the roller to roll out a piece of clay, so it's a nice thin piece called a slab. And you can cut shapes out using a needle tool. Sometimes this is more successful than others. Some shapes are easier than others. But this is a way to do it. That was pretty rough, but you can also make yourself a little template to trace each time so they're all the same. But you should, even after you make it, cut it out, use your fingers and just gently smooth things out. You know, you can create all kinds of interesting textures on the clay. You can stamp things in. You can create patterns or designs, things like that. Okay, so you can have a piece like that, and this doesn't need to be hollowed because it's thin. If you're making something spherical, let's say you're making some kind of a soccer ball or something that is a circle, you have to be careful. Now this may or may not need to be hollowed, but it's right on the border. This is probably okay. Anything bigger than this would need to get hollowed like that. But this is probably okay. It's under an inch. But if I make it a nice sphere, what's gonna happen when I try to play with it? It's gonna roll away. So even though you want it to be a sphere, you make it a nice sphere, give it some gentle taps. What that's gonna do is it's gonna give you a flat edge so that it won't roll away. So your pieces look spherical from all the other angles, but it has a flattened bottom so it can stand without rolling away. So again, these are just some ideas to help you out when you're creating your pieces. Remember that each piece you make, you have to be able to recreate to have 5 of each one.